Hi there, and welcome to Impact, the program that focuses on people and organizations who are making an impact in our community, in our state, and in our country. My name is Kelly, and today we're going to be joined by several different Republican candidates in our primary coming up on May 17th. One quick note, by the way, you might see some of our different candidates in the same setting, in the same chair. They're not running against each other, and they're not running on the same ticket. So we just want to make sure and let everybody know each one of these candidates is running on their own merit in their own race, and we're asking for your support as you listen to each one of them and make your own decisions. Hi there and welcome. Today we're speaking with Flint Christensen, running for United States Congress in District 2. Flint, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Rigby, Idaho, in kind of a small farm that my great-grandfather built when he settled the area. I grew up in a family of 13 children and 13 stepchildren.
Wow.
So my mom was married and had 12 kids. I was the 11th of those 12. Then he died, and she married again. He had 5.
Wow.
And then they had 1 together, and then he died.
Wow.
And then she married again, and he had 8. And then she passed away.
Wow.
So it was a very big extended family, and we grew up in a very interesting life, that's for sure.
I bet. So any kids, where do you live currently?
So my wife and I, Stephanie, we live in Shelley, Idaho. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is currently serving in Fort Gordon, Georgia, as an Army intelligence analyst. We're very proud of him.
Yeah. He
is bound and determined to outrank me and get no Article 15s, he said, because he wants to be a better soldier. And I couldn't be prouder. So.
So what branch did you serve?
I was in the regular Army.
Okay.
I was a truck driver, 88 Mike. I've continued that off and on through my various careers. Last year I was driving for Dot Foods out of Burley, going coast to coast, and just missing my family, and they were missing me. And so we decided that I needed to get off the road. Lucky for me, our little candy shop in Shelley just took off. We invented a candy that we've been really successful with.
Good.
And then we bought an old abandoned motel, and we've been renovating that room by room, trying to fix it up.
Wow.
And since I had nothing else going on, I figured I'd run for Congress
Hey,
as well.
that sounds good. That sounds good. Well, before we go any farther, thank you for your military service. And seeing as how the American trucker has also become a new American hero, thank you for your services in that as well.
You know, I think during COVID, I got more thanks as a truck driver than I ever did as a soldier. And
wow.
we got a lot of thanks and accolades as being a soldier. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely a peculiar time to be driving, and not only that, we were hauling food. So
yeah,
it was a great part of my life and a part that I would like to leave behind. I'd like to let somebody else take the reins on that, and I'd like to stay home with my family.
That's a challenging lifestyle.
Except maybe I'll go to Washington.
Yeah. So what made you want to run for Congress? I know it wasn't just you were bored.
I kind of had a bit of a crisis of faith.
Okay.
Ironically, it started driving truck, and you have to either listen to yourself think or listen to books on tape or listen to podcasts. And I found myself just listening to everybody I could think of on both sides of the aisle, and that got me into a kind of a deep research into the writings of Cleon Skousen and some of our founding fathers. And I had a moment where I just got fed up with a lot of the platitudes.
Yeah.
People just saying the repetition of, be a good conservative, move forward. It's like none of those words meant anything.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get to the specifics. And so I came and I asked myself, are we on the wrong track? And if so, when did that start? Because if you can't pick out when we went on the wrong track, how in the world are we going to fix it?
Right.
And so through that journey, I came to the conclusion of where we went wrong.
Wow.
And the more I dwelt on that, the more I realized that politics as usual is not something I'm going to tolerate anymore.
Good.
I'm tired of just voting for... I don't like the terminology lesser of evils, because the reality is, and I've learned that very much on this campaign trail, that anybody that steps up to the plate to serve, whether they've been doing it for 40 years or they've been doing it for 2 months, there has to be that sincere desire to put your ambitions aside and truly go into it in an act of service.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't think it's the lesser of evils per se, but I do think that what we're seeing as a nation is corruption in its purest form.
Wow. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is corruption with evil intent. That's probably the hardest to spot because it's actively hidden from mind, out of sight, out of mind. The corruption I'm talking about is just the rust that accumulates on the fender of a good old trusty farm truck. That is the business as usual. That is the vote for influence over integrity.
Right. Yeah.
And I saw no faith in the people that presented themselves for my vote.
Wow.
And I think it was just a conversation I had with my son. He's like, why don't you run? And I thought, well, that's okay, fine, I will. I've learned a lot of things along the way. And it's a race I'm committed to winning.
Good.
So this adventure won't stop here.
Good. So what was your conclusion in looking back over the last several years? Where did we go wrong?
I had a peculiar dream, and it was of a large banquet hall. And it was filled with rowdy people just all clamoring about. And what I imagined in my mind was the reality of what we're dealing with, and that is everybody fighting for these scraps from the federal government.
Right.
And that's not how it should be.
Right.
And that was not how it was ever intended from the Founding Fathers. There were specific rights that were granted on the federal level, and everything else was left to the states.
Yeah.
And it's not that those rights have been stolen from us. We gave them away.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And by we, I mean our grandparents, someone before them.
Wow.
So the conclusion that I came to was if our founding fathers, inspired by God, were able to establish the best government on earth, then it would look like something from the teachings of our Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
And that is the gift of agency. And with that comes the ability for us to govern ourselves on every level down to the individual. I believe very much that the greatest individual, or I said it wrong, the greatest minority is that of the individual.
Wow.
And that's where the right should be maintained. You can't have freedom and ignorance at the same time.
Yeah.
There was a great quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said that. He says, it'll never happen. It has never happened and never will. So if we had a moment in history where we gave away our rights to get self-govern, when did that happen? And I believe that happened with the passing of the 16th and the 17th Amendment. With the 16th Amendment, that is basically the ability for the federal government to tax individuals directly.
Right.
That gave the power of the purse, and it took it from the states, and it granted it on the federal level. Good luck getting that back.
Yeah, exactly.
I aim to try.
Yeah.
The passing of the 17th Amendment is a little less romantic, but it's the fight worth fighting first. And that is, we gave away the states' rights, and we hand that over to the federal level.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about the right of the individual in the states. I'm talking about the ability for the state to govern the people. And when you take away the voice of the senators and you hand it to the population, we get much closer to a pure democracy.
Right.
The problem with the pure democracy is that allows 10 farmers to vote to take the last farmer's cow.
Right.
And that's not right. We're set up as a constitutional republic, and we should be allowed to govern Idaho as we see fit, and we're allowed to let California govern themselves as they see fit. And when you take the voice of the state and you remove it, you have given the ability for the citizens directly to grant themselves gifts of the Treasury.
Wow.
And when people have gifts of the Treasury bestowed upon them benevolently, you have the fall of the Roman Empire all over again.
The rust starts to creep into the farm truck.
It does. I am a huge fan of President Calvin Coolidge. Not a very popular president. I think he's probably intentionally not well talked about in political spectrums, because Calvin Coolidge was a president willing to say no, willing to put a stop to the madness that is people voting their self-interests and destroying the economy.
Yeah.
All you have to do is spend 20 minutes looking on any of these pages on Facebook, community pages. People are crying out in anguish and frustration at the price of rent.
Yeah.
I've been on this campaign trail, mixing and mingling on every single level, and I'm not hearing that. Why?
Yeah.
That is not a ridiculous notion to talk about as a politician, hoping to change it.
Yeah.
But the reality is half the people campaigning are the cause of it,
Yeah.
and the other half are more interested in how much influence they can buy than how much difference they can make. I'm a unique candidate. I'm declaring outside of the establishment, and I'm declaring a candidate unwilling to take the donations of the people that are hit the hardest in our economy.
Right.
So how do you win? How does a person like me win on a principle like that, where I'm not willing to take the dollars from lobbyists, and I'm damn sure not willing to beg from my constituents that are hitting hard times? I know that such an attempt only is successful if people are waking up.
Right.
The good news is as I've been across this district, I'm seeing countless organizations. Stand Up For Idaho, United We Stand. Those were the ones, those organizations, and there's more, where people were just fed up. And they're saying, we've got to take control of our country back. And there's a little bit of floundering as we're getting organized.
Yeah.
But the incumbents got to know we're coming after them.
Absolutely.
They're not going to stand.
Yeah.
And the other thing we're seeing is, if you look down the ballot, how many opposition candidates are declared? That tells you if there's an awakening.
Yeah.
And it's palpable. You can taste it. You can feel that energy from just knowing that something is coming, and what do I need to do to prepare for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The reality is that answer has been quoted to many in our audience, describing the Constitution hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
And that thread has been named. It's been named. And that is the power of the vote.
Absolutely.
When you throw your power of your vote away, you're willing to vote on influence, who you think is the likely candidate versus who you know will represent your interests the best.
Yeah.
When you can stop throwing away that vote and vote on principle, that's when things change.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you reach out and you tell your friends, hey, check out this guy. And I'm not just saying me.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, I'm just a tired truck driver, soldier, small business guy that I'm tired of it. I'm tired of voting for status quo.
Right.
And I want somebody in there that will say no to these massive omnibus spending.
Yeah.
You can't tell me in good conscience that our representatives even read that last bill before they voted.
Yeah.
They didn't even have a chance.
How many thousands of pages was it?
Thousands. I think I heard somebody say there was 6 pounds worth of
Right.
pork just thrown into it.
Right. Yeah.
And there's,
Oh, go ahead.
in one of these last campaigns I was at, everyone gets a chance to kind of put their stuff on the table. And Mike Simpson had a stack, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 pages thick of all of his accomplishments. And I read through them, and they were great accomplishments. I couldn't honestly look at any of them and say, yeah, that was garbage. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
You know, he's been in for 30 some odd years.
Wow.
And they were great accomplishments. So hats off to him for being able to pull that off. But the thing that I couldn't stop thinking about wasn't the list of accomplishments. It was the list of concessions that was tied to every single one of those accomplishments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What am I paying for? What am I, well, I got to vote for that because I need to get X, Y, and Z through.
Yeah.
That's got to stop.
Yeah.
And it's got to take somebody that hasn't immediately bought into the influence of whatever group or organization is cutting them a check. It's got to be done by somebody who's not willing to be bought.
Right.
It's got to be somebody that's, can you imagine if you had a state representative and when a lobbyist come to pitch them, you can be like, hey, glad to have you. Our precinct, I'm meeting with this precinct over here in Burley.
Yeah.
Okay. Please come and pitch it to the precinct committee.
Yeah.
And
be awesome.
we'll see if we can help you out.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would like that light shine on them, or do you think they'd run like cockroaches?
Yeah. Whether it's big pharma or
Maybe it's an honorable and intelligent lobbyist group that doesn't mind having that light shine. They'd be like, oh, well, thank you. This is something that we really need pushed through.
that'd be awesome.
Maybe your precinct can help you. Fat chance, but it might happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think that that's the nature of a politician that I want in.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I can't in good conscience beg donations from people that I know are hurting in this economy.
Wow.
I can't do it.
Yeah. When you were talking about, experienced politicians, that's been one of the things that my family and I, when we see the billboards, when we see the ads, experience you can trust, or proven leadership in Idaho or in Congress or whatever, that word experienced, in my mind, I hear game player. It means you know how to play the game. And we don't need any more game players. We need people that are real and authentic and representing American people. And I think there's been so much of, ignorance, sleepiness,
Apathy.
Yes. And that we've just kind of let them do their thing back in Washington for so long. And I think COVID really kind of started to wake some people up.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
We can't really blame Washington.
No, exactly.
Because they're doing what they're designed to do.
Yeah. We're the ones that took our hand off the wheel.
And you do that as an individual. You have a personal responsibility to engage. But it's difficult to blame the individual when they genuinely feel that the system is rigged.
Exactly.
And it's not enough to sit and complain anymore.
Yeah.
What you need to do is open up, educate yourself.
Yeah.
It has to come through that level of education.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it. My own personal journey brought me to the 16th and 17th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of the coin that it brought me to, and that's going up. That's the highest level.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's where we relinquished our rights to start everything.
Yeah.
The byproduct of that is almost every form of corruption I can think of, from gerrymandering to how funds are acquired and redistributed.
Yeah.
But there's another side of it that I wish people would wake up on, and that is the smallest form of representation, and that is your local precinct.
Absolutely.
I couldn't tell you who my precinct is because I don't have one. Like literally where my house is, there's no precinct representative.
Wow.
Doesn't exist. It's a vacant spot.
Wow.
But who can?
Yeah.
Who can honestly say, yeah, I know who my representative is, and yeah, they've reached out to me and they've filled me in on who the candidates. How it's not even the best candidates.
Right.
Okay. Can you imagine if our precinct committees were actually given the level of respect from our state representatives?
Wow.
And they said, yeah, I've got an open communication with Mike Simpson. I'm your state representative from Montpelier.
Wow.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened for years. What I have learned happened, and this is a form of corruption I'm going to open up for everybody, okay? What you have is an active campaign from establishment where they will pluck somebody and they will say, hey, will you be our representative, or will you be the precinct rep?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, I don't know. Yeah, sure. What do I do?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We'll tell you when you need to show up and vote. There is an authority as a precinct representative. You're not beholden to anybody except for your own constituents.
Wow.
And imagine if people actually banded together. Okay.
Yeah.
If you've got a local precinct and you said, hey, Congressman so-and-so, we've got 100 people that we're going to be assembling next month. Will you come and talk to them? And that representative says no. What do you think would happen there? You've got both ends of the spectrum. And one has created an environment where the other one is a neutered, feckless position. Regrettably.
Yeah.
So as congressman, my very first action out the door is to network with all of the precincts in the district.
Right.
And to get it focused back so that they know that I am absolutely 100% available to them and accountable to them.
Good.
And that's the most important thing. If I can change anything as a congressman, it'll be how we interact as a representative. A true representative, not somebody to govern the masses.
Good. Yeah. So just as a common citizen, what are the responsibilities of a precinct representative, and how do we hold our precinct representatives accountable?
If you haven't ever had the opportunity to talk with your precinct rep, it's because of one of two reasons. It's intentional, and they just are not engaged.
Right.
Or probably the level of complacency where you are at. I know for a fact that when we have good, strong, conservative precinct reps, the establishment plugs in opposition to run against them.
Right.
Why is that?
They don't want to hear from the people.
That's a question I have for our current establishment. Why is that? I aim to change that.
Good. Good.
Anything I can do as a congressman is not going to be fixed in Washington. I'm going to be a representative willing to say no, and that's probably where that's going to stop. But where I can make a true difference is re-engaging the citizens how we're meant to be engaged.
Good.
And you know how easy it is for me to say no on a bill? It's this simple. I'll say, if I can't read it and present it to my constituents or even to my precinct members, and I don't have the time to present it, then it's a no.
Right.
And if I do have the time to present it, imagine that. Imagine that we had a bill come to the floor where we needed to vote to join the war in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't in good conscience be the voice saying, yeah, we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I could in good conscience present that to the constituents,
Yeah.
to the precincts, to the local mayors.
Mm-hmm.
Say, it's your sons and daughters that we're going to leave on the battlefield.
Wow.
You say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe with either of the candidates declared right now that we will see anything on that level of commitment to true representation.
Wow.
That's why I'm running.
Good. Good. So speaking of our military, what do you feel like are some of the most important issues facing our congressional leaders at this point?
Sorry, on the military side of things?
No, just overall. What are some of the biggest concerns that you feel like, not just in Congress, but for the American people?
An active campaign to push our country into a global governance.
Mm.
I reject that 100%.
Good.
And we're being hit with on every side.
Yeah.
From ESG scores to Event 201, I think that's what they call it,
Yeah.
to the UN.
Yeah.
There's powerful people in place trying to undermine our beloved Constitution.
Absolutely.
And they will be successful if people don't step up.
Right.
That's inevitable.
Yeah.
Do we have people in office right now willing to take a stand on that? Willing to come with the receipts and say, this is who I've been talking to.
Mm-hmm.
These are the lobbyists that have petitioned me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power play behind everything.
Wow.
There's so much secrecy.
Yeah.
And I'll be the happy candidate that just says, hey, look who came and talked to me today, and this is what they were pitching.
Yeah.
I would become very unpopular.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I would get attacked so incredibly viciously. Congressman Christensen refused to sign on to the We Love Puppies Act.
Yeah.
How vile is he? Yeah, you're right. I didn't sign on to the We Love Puppies Act because it was also tied to the Kill All Turtles Act, and I like turtles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a no-win situation that we're stuck in. And the only way to break this cycle is to take back the power.
Right.
And to take back the authority.
Mm-hmm.
And have somebody willing to get in there and say, no, your out of control spending has given us this wonderful gift of inflation.
Yeah.
Okay. The citizens got $1,400 and all of your friends got 14 trillion.
Exactly. And they
Where's
and
the
pay
trade-off?
raises for everybody that yeah.
And they left you with the check and the inflation.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Bravo. How can we be happy about that?
Yeah.
I'm not hearing any of the candidates. Well, that's not true. I was listening to Giddings, and she was talking a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But on their little intros and the dinner dates and the We Love Rhino conventions that I keep getting invited to, they're not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That should be infuriating.
Right.
Infuriating to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of pat on the backs and good old boys clubs, and it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And as a true outsider, I'm not the true outsider, apparently.
Yeah.
As an outsider to it, I come with that fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Because I'm affected on the other end. Mm-hmm. As a small business owner, as a father of a son that is sure to see battle.
Yeah.
I'm the everyman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of it.
Good. Well, and I think that's what makes you an appropriate voice for so many people that are also tired of it. And I think that's been one of the cool things over the last couple of years is that people not only have been waking up, but they've been being educated to the fact that they have the right to be fed up.
You didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
The memo is, according to Neil and Julie, which I really like their radio show, I'm not a viable candidate. And why am I not a viable candidate? Because I do not have the fundraising machine in place. Mm-hmm. I do not have the ads playing.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have the establishment behind me.
Right.
And it's true. I am not a viable candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And when people get done with deciding that they want to vote influence over principle, then I will become a viable candidate.
Yeah.
And it may not be me at that end. It may be somebody else.
Yeah.
But if we as a society reject the candidates that are never viable, we will always be left with the candidates chosen by the establishment.
Exactly. Well, and I seem to remember a presidential candidate a few years ago that pundits said wasn't viable and he was an outsider and not presidential enough.
Yep.
And
Yep.
look at where we are.
And I voted for Kanye West. But, just kidding.
But I think that's what there's kind of a shakeup going on where there's an awful lot of people that are saying, "Hey, I am every man. I am every mom. I represent the people that I go to soccer practice with and run into in the car line." And I think that's what's kind of cool about the movement that is going on right now in America is
I know there's going to be more like me.
absolutely.
And that excites me.
Yeah.
And I think that I know there's an awakening.
Yeah.
You can't have the. You know what's funny about all these establishments, or it's not establishments, these organizations that are stepping up, like Stand Up for Idaho.
Yeah.
The great thing is when they stood up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't post-Biden.
Right.
People need to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
It was midterms in Trump's run.
Yeah.
That tells me two things. One, it has nothing to do with a popularity contest.
Exactly.
It has to do with people's recognizing that there is a concerted effort to keep you where you're at.
Exactly.
And I'm done with that. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it echoes of the Roman Empire, bread and circuses, and keep the populace entertained and distracted from what the elites are doing. And I think that's kind of been the cool wake-up call that we've seen over the last several years is people are done with the bread and circuses don't entertain as much anymore. And they're kind of looking around and going, wait, where's the country I love? Where's the country my kids grew up in or I grew up in? And so it's definitely cool to just kind of see what's bubbling to the surface. And the candidates that are coming up actually want to know what the people have to say, not just, hey, how much can you give me? They actually want to hear what the concerns of the people are.
I feel that.
So we've talked a little bit about this process of being a candidate. So what are some of the things that you've been learning through this whole process?
So one thing I've been doing on my Facebook page is as I come across this nugget of truth, and it may just be like, here's the process. I didn't know. I want people to know.
Yeah.
So like when I went to declare my candidacy, I had the form and it was notarized and I was super excited and I went and stood in this window and it was one of those glass partitions with like a little slot in it. And this lady kind of waddled over to me and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "I'm here to declare my candidacy." And she's like, "Wrong building, go over there." She didn't actually talk like that. It's funnier. But yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself as I was presenting it through this glass slot, I'm like, wow, you'd think that there was a little bit more pomp and circumstance. It was certainly important to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I brought my kids with me and I wanted them to see this process. And it was just like, pay at the window. And I'm like, oh.
Like luckily, the DMV, right?
Luckily it wasn't like that. And I walked up into the large corridor in our state office building, and I had somebody just like, and they were ushering me through the process. And I'm like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. And it was a lot nicer.
Good.
But as I experienced that, I try to teach people that.
Good.
And as I reach hurdles and speed bumps along the way,
Yeah.
I want people to know that too.
Good.
I want to take the mystery of it out. But first and foremost, I want to be an educator.
Good.
I have personally picked up pieces of my battle buddy off the side of my truck in Iraq. I've done the fighting. Truly, I've been a fighter. But what I know is that in order for us to save our Constitution and to save our country, we need to be first teachers. And we need to get out in force. And that's what I aim to do. And we need to educate. If we can educate, people will step up.
Absolutely.
And they will say, I didn't even know I had a precinct rep.
Exactly.
Who is this person that's supposed to be giving me information?
Yeah.
And you go to the precinct rep and you teach them how to run a good precinct where the people know how to get a hold of their representatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of it is the system is flawed through natural corruption and just a breakdown of the system. And the other half is that apathy.
Yeah.
And if we can engage on both sides of it, we can restore our Constitution.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm so excited that you're kind of becoming a clearinghouse for so much of this information, because I've talked with other folks that are like, I would love to run, but I don't even know where to start. And that's something I think there's so many people that they feel like they would be starting from scratch in building a new wheel. How do I even start to build a mousetrap? And so for folks like you and some of the other candidates that we've talked with, to be those trailblazers and collecting the information of how do I know how many signs to order? Where do I order signs from? And and just the process of declaring your candidacy, and how much does it cost? I need to get it.
$300.
Wow.
$300 to run for Congress, and a willingness to change.
That's amazing.
I talked with a number of people, and I won't throw their names out, but the questions that they hit me with, the first two questions, who do you know and how much money do you bring to the table?
Wow.
Doesn't that just take the wind out of your sails?
Yeah.
Who are you isolating if you ask that question? Pretty much everybody.
Yeah. And in this day and age, nobody brings a ton of money to the table.
No. And if you can bring that table, that is influence that you're willing to sell for that.
Right.
I don't see any way around that. And I'm not going to do it.
Good.
I'm not going to do it.
Good. So how can people support you?
Spread the word.
Okay.
Let people know that there is a viable candidate.
Yeah.
That's going to do what he says. He's going to shake things up. That's going to restore the voice back to the people. And more importantly, I'm going to use the Constitution to do it.
Good.
I met with, we actually hosted Ammon Bundy because in our motel, we were trying to get every candidate we could.
Good,
and he stopped by. And I appreciate his sincerity. But that's the fighters that we need to put at bay for a little bit.
Yeah.
If it needs to get to that, I don't have a problem being a fighter again. But we've got to be teachers first.
Yeah.
And in order to be effective teachers, we have to learn. We have to do our homework so that we can answer the tough questions on if it's not how it's supposed to be, how do we get it there?
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm pleading to anyone else that thinks I can't change. First of all, you can change. And second of all, it takes that willingness to be a teacher first and foremost.
Good. So one of the things that I keep coming back to that I'm actually really encouraged by, Flint, is the fact that not only have you had military battlefield experience, but you have the heart of a teacher. And that combination right there that's this moment that we're in. The ability to stand and not back down, because I think there's a lot of people that they might have a heart to teach, but they don't have the spine to stand. And so just seeing that combination.
I think we're going to see both.
Yeah.
And we're going to need both.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need teachers, and we're going to need fighters.
Yeah.
And we need to get them to come together.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to happen. I know that we're going to step up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already seeing it.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a turn of events that happens on an organized level, utilizing the principles that our founding fathers and our God in heaven have given us.
Yeah.
And we're going to win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what's so cool is when it happens in nature, it happens in the Bible. When you turn on the light, evil dies. That is a proven principle. And I think the more candidates that we come in that are wanting not just government transparency, we've heard that lingo for decades, really.
Haven't we heard all of the lingos?
Yeah, we have.
We're tired of the platitudes.
Yeah.
I want, for once, for someone to come up with a great byline in their campaign and then say, and here's how we're going to do it.
Exactly.
Not just leave us hanging like, ooh, he sounds sincere.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, there's so many people that want hope right now, but they don't want to hear it from a campaign poster ever again. You know, we heard enough hope and change. And
forward into a brick wall is still forward, folks.
Yeah. There's so many words that they mean something to the people that hear it, but when they're just words to the people that are saying it, then there's a lot of disappointment and disillusionment. And so I think we're at a really cool time in history where that desire for hope and change and future really it matters not as poster words, but as marching orders for the American people. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what candidates bring to the table moving forward with all of this.
I think if people are always told people are always told to call in to their senators, congressmen, whenever a hot bill is on the table. Mm-hmm. Isn't that too late?
Yeah.
Shouldn't they have been pestering their precinct rep months before?
Yeah.
Shouldn't they have been engaged before they're affected?
Yeah.
If your daughter comes home, she doesn't know what gender she is anymore. Mm-hmm. It was everything that led up to that.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't that moment. Mm-hmm. There is still time for people that have not woken up yet to realize the power, the authority of their vote.
Right.
And that's not just a cliche, and that's not just a pleasant platitude.
Right.
It's a sincere pleading. If you want to know what vote really matters, it's not in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Right.
It's your local precinct.
Absolutely.
Who has your back? Mm-hmm. Who has your voice?
Yeah. Well, and I think the idea of a primary vote, it's not wait until November and then go check a box and get your sticker. May 17th really determines what happens in November. And so I think that's been one of the things that we've been talking about with so many of these candidates is May 17th, mark it on your calendars, take a long lunch, whatever you need to do. Figure out if you're even registered as a Republican to vote in this primary, and then where do you vote? There's so many people that they don't even know where their location is.
I was at a candidate forum meeting today in Twin Falls. It was at College of Eastern Idaho. And this one gal walked by and I was talking with her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll register to vote this summer. I was going to do it." It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It was clear she was a Democrat, so I didn't correct her.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing is there's so many people that I've talked to that said, I didn't even know we were having a primary. When is it? And you know, they're lifelong rhino type Republicans, but I think that's what the quote unquote establishment has been banking on is just people stay asleep, people stay distracted. And we're trying to get the word out. Hey, May 17th, it's the biggest day in the next, you know, there's graduations and there's prom and there's all that other stuff that's coming up. But if you are 18 or older, May 17th, it matters. Yeah. At least here in Idaho. In other states, figure out when your primary is. But the primary turnout, at least around here, has only been in the low 10,000s.
So last time Smith and Bryan went at each other, there was less than 80,000 people that voted on that ticket.
Wow. And that determines our representatives.
Yep.
That determines our voice. And
yep.
If you want to be heard, if you want your voice to matter, then you need to take the time to go check the box and get the sticker.
Some people think I'm crazy because I don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any posters up.
Right.
How many times have you voted for somebody based on their billboard you saw on the side of the road? I never have.
Yeah.
How many times have you voted for somebody because they said, yeah, that's a real logical argument and his competitor is garbage. I'm going to vote for...
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
The circus happens,
mm-hmm.
and people are tribal, so they pick their winning team.
Yeah.
And that is a reality that certainly I'm fighting against,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to deny its existence.
Mm-hmm.
But if everybody says, well, I'm not going to run because I can't be opposition to that, then nobody's going to run.
Exactly.
So should I not win? I think I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
But should I not, I would hope that my willingness to attempt the fight
mm-hmm.
might inspire somebody else to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes down to people saying, yeah, that's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like her. And then actually engaging in a conversation with your friends and your family.
Yeah.
That's how you decide who you're voting for.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the primaries. Well, who I haven't been researching. Who should I vote for?
Exactly.
Vote for this, and this.
Yeah.
That's the campaign speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're saying that with your family and you say, hey, Flint Christensen, that is a guy that's sincere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about his values. So if you like values, vote for that guy.
Yeah.
That's how I win.
And that's
when
been
people wake up.
That's been, I mean, in my line of work, I get to talk with so many of you guys. And, you know, I just have a sticky note that I keep in my binder because I interact with people that are legitimately busy. They're healthcare workers, they're moms, they're dad, they're busy and they don't have all of the time to sift through and research because anybody can say anything in public, but it's the private. Okay, what do they actually stand for? What do they actually believe? And so I do keep a cheat sheet basically. And so when people ask me, they're like, Kelly, I just haven't had a chance. Who do you like? Who do you recommend? And they're friends of mine and we have similar beliefs and views. And I'll have my sticky note and I'll be like, well, this is who I like. I'm not going to guarantee their character, their integrity, but the things I've seen, I'm impressed with. And, you know, our neighbors and our friends, those endorsements actually matter more than any endorsement from, yeah.
They're everything.
Yeah.
I don't even have an endorsement page on my website.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I could tell you all the people that endorse me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all dear friends and families and people that I have genuinely had an opportunity to engage with.
Right.
One-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
People that will actually say, okay, let's hear your story. What are you about?
Yeah.
And they come up to me afterward and they're like, well, you got my vote.
Yeah.
That means the world to me.
That's a high compliment.
The highest.
Yeah. Yeah. So aside from telling their friends, Is there anything else that folks can do to support you?
I definitely am not asking for donations, but I
Yeah.
am asking for all the help I can get.
Okay.
If you are willing to knock doors for me, if you're willing to put together some meeting places and invite me to speak, I have not turned down a single engagement. I have not turned down a single debate, though my opposition certainly has.
Mm-hmm.
I have not turned down a chance to spread my message.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people see something in me that they say, hey, let's hear more about that guy,
Good.
I am happy to engage every single person that has ever messaged me on my website.
Mm-hmm.
I message them right back. And if it is something insightful that I can answer, if they're asking me a sincere question, then I will take their question and I will post it verbatim and I will give my answer in response to it.
Good.
I'm trying to make myself as open and as clear in everything I believe, because that's how it should be.
Good.
You shouldn't be guessing on any issue, whether I have a strong opinion or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind saying, I don't know, you tell me what my opinion. Let's hear yours and I'll see if I can salute that.
Good, good. So if people want to learn more about you, if they've been listening to this conversation and saying, I think I like what I hear, but I want to know more, Facebook, website, how do they reach out to you?
My Facebook page is Flint Christensen for Congress.
Okay.
My website is ourmanflint.org.
Okay.
And I do not have a Twitter page because I don't understand Twitter. I might get on there and troll, but
Yeah.
I don't have any presence on there. I think my Twitter handle is Facebook Jailbreak.
Facebook jailbreak. Okay. That says all it needs to say. I don't think you need to.
Yeah, I've been in Facebook jail so many times.
Yeah. Well, in this day and age, that's actually a badge of honor. If you've been in Facebook jail, that means something. So.
I have no problem defending what I believe is true.
Good.
And I have no problem listening to a good argument and debating the merits of it.
Right.
I've never been afraid of that.
I think that's the key, though, listening to a good argument, the well-reasoned.
Did I tell you I grew up with 13 brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
I was trained at a very young age the ways of the force with a good argument.
Good.
And I don't mind defending principles that I know are true.
Good. Flint,
have a lot of them.
is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
I want to reemphasize that if you really want to make a difference this election, and every election to come, hold your elected officials accountable.
Good.
And that starts with your precinct rep.
Yeah. And if people don't know who their precinct rep is, or even how do they find out who their precinct rep is?
Well, the information will be at your county courthouse.
Okay.
Maybe a Google search.
Okay.
I don't know. It's 2022.
Yeah.
You can find it.
Yeah. Just
Don't make
Google,
that the reason you're
Google
not
who is
engaged.
my precinct rep and put in your address. Hopefully that's what pops. But that's a good place to start. Well, Flint, thank you so much for joining me today. We're excited to see what happens on May 17th, and hopefully we'll see you in November.
Thank you. You'll see me in November.
Sounds good. Our Republican primary is coming up May 17th, so be sure and be registered as a Republican before then. The views expressed by our guests may or may not express all of the views of the host, Flying Maverick Media, or Stand Up For Idaho. Thanks so much for tuning in.